Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deckinaround Reviewed. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Summit from Patrick Kun and Abstract Effects. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell, please.
At last, a thought of card to Sharpie that has no card switches, no Sharpie switches, and a practical yet mind-blowing method. Your spectator thinks of a card and you hand them a Sharpie to write it down. But to their surprise, the Sharpie doesn't actually work. You take the Sharpie from the spectator and without any moves and while keeping the Sharpie in view the entire time, you open it up to reveal a card rolled up inside. The spectator still has not said or even written down their card. But to everyone's surprise, the spectator says their card for the first time. You unroll the card and it's the card they said.
Amazing.
Dude, I 100% have to agree. I think this is a phenomenal effect from Patrick Kun and the other brothers. This physical gimmick comes with an online instructional and can be purchased for $55, which after looking at that tutorial, man, is an absolute steal.
Yeah, dude, there was so much hype around this, gimmick. And when I got the tutorial and I opened it up, I honestly would have, been excited if it was a 6-hour-long tutorial, but it was 45 minutes. At first, I was like, ugh, but I got over it. Watching the other brothers in a video is very easy to get through. They're very energetic, very thorough. One thing I really enjoyed about this tutorial, more than the last one we did, which was IMR, which was the first 3 to 5 minutes, they went over the routine, which kind of let me know exactly what I was getting into, how it was performed, and that made it just a lot easier to go from there.
Absolutely agreed, man. I think one of the great things about that little roundup in the beginning is you could have literally watched that and pretty much gotten everything you needed out of it to go out, use the gimmick, and perform it without a lot of the troubleshooting or patter that they include with it or some of the routines that they include as well. I think, that's really a great way to give someone a abbreviated look at everything they need to know without getting into too much detail until they're ready to kind of step into that. And I think, we've seen some tutorials where it jumps right into the meat of it without any sort of trailer or any sort of kind of lead up. And sometimes it's difficult because you don't know what to watch out for. The great thing about this is the entire routine before they get into the real deep details of it. So what questions you need answered from the jump.
Yeah, and I mean, they did a very good job along the way as they were going through the tutorial on different things that you might run into. You might have issues with, and I gotta say, all the hype around it, I was literally blown away watching how it was done.
Yeah.
It's a genius gimmick, and the hype is real for sure.
No doubt, man. I think it's really interesting to see too, because I think the other brothers play off each other so well that throughout the entire tutorial, even in spite of the length, as you mentioned, there's just so much energy that they bring to it that you can tell that they had such a great time creating this and they're so excited to share it. But the ingenuity that went into this and, them really touching on how they developed it, how long it's been in the works, and every little bit of the gimmick itself is great. I think one of the really cool things that they touched on throughout the whole tutorial was obviously the gimmick can wear out over time. And at a $55 price point, that's kind of a detriment sometimes. But they really touched on every single way that you can replace all of the parts that would wear out on this. So ultimately, you're spending $55 for not only instruction on how to use it, but the instruction on how to replace all of the parts as they wear out. So ultimately, it's a one-time $55 purchase for a lifetime of use.
Yeah, and I think that's really important when you are spending $55 on a gimmick. I think a lot of things that, we look over don't always go over that in the tutorials, so having that information, how to rebuild it and, how to replace things is definitely huge.
I absolutely agree. I really do think too with the tutorial as well, touching on a lot of the places that you can use this, they really talked about how easy it is to use this for street performance or how you can use it in more of a close-up and personal setting. But there was almost a little bit of a comic kind of bit towards the end of the tutorial where all of a sudden the camera turns off and then flashes back on and it's very disorganized looking. because they want to remind everyone that you can also use this for online performances as well, so zoom magic. So really there's a lot of both personal close-up and more zoom or online availability with this gimmick, where you can really perform a great routine. And one of the cool things about it is that routine basically stays exactly the same no matter where you're performing it.
Yeah, and I feel it's a very easy routine to perform. So anybody from beginner, intermediate to professional magician can definitely have an easy time with this. I don't think there's much preparation. It's very simple to maneuver into the routine.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, like I said, that first 3 to 5 minute roundup in the beginning, having only ever seen this, watching it for the first time, I felt like I could have gone and performed it right after that. And I think the cool thing about that is it is super beginner friendly. With that in mind, obviously practice makes perfect. And the more you practice, the nuances of the gimmick and the performance, the better it'll be. But I love seeing stuff where it just has that mind-blowing effect, but at the same time, you could literally go perform it within 20 minutes of watching it the first time.
Yeah, sometimes the best gimmicks are the ones that are just, so easy to perform.
Absolutely. And I think one of the cool things too about this is you're only limited in the use of the gimmick by your imagination. There's a lot of creative ways that someone who is more adept at this is going to be able to modify or kind of change the routine to account for things potentially other than just standard cards. The really cool thing about this is there's a lot of flexibility in the performance itself. And while they didn't necessarily touch on that too much in the tutorial, I think anyone who, is used to that creative process could watch this video and quickly realize that there's a lot of possibility to it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one of the big things during the routine is, as a spectator, when you're handed the actual gimmick, it kind of takes away from your mind that there's something fishy.
100%.
So that's definitely a big plus for me as well in this specific gimmick, is the fact that you can, let your spectator hold on to it, use it, so to speak, and then give it back. So in their head, it just seems like there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, they make the whole gimmick and the whole routine very unassuming. And I think the really cool thing about it too is they touch on so many different ways that you can run through the routine, that it just makes it so no matter how you kind of prefer to work with a gimmick in this routine, you're comfortable with it. You can get out of your comfort zone and get creative, or you can use the provided routines and discussion points that are very much planned out depending on how you like to perform. But it really is just such a creative gimmick and kind of routine built in with it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say definitely one of my favorite gimmicks that I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely agreed on that one. And I think, one of the things we always touch on here also is the angle sensitivity. Depending on the area where you're playing with this, there's obviously some angle sensitivity, but I think a lot of that is really under the magician's control. So I think a lot of that angle sensitivity can be accounted for in the way that you run through the routine, where if you're in a situation where, people are at different angles to you, you just switch things up a little bit and it removes a lot of that fear of angle sensitivity, which I also really liked because it makes it just that much more adaptable.
Yeah, I think it's so much about confidence in this particular routine. And if you have a little bit of confidence, I think it'll go along for sure.
Absolutely agreed. So again, this is really a great gimmick for anyone from beginner to a professional magician. I think, anyone could get a lot out of this gimmick. And I think at that $55 price point, it really makes a lot of sense to pick this up because it's something that will last you a lifetime because you know how to build it once you get it, which I think is really cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for checking out this episode of Deckin Around Reviewed. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out Summit from Patrick Kun and Abstract Effects at your favorite Murphy's Magic retailer.
Peace.